Good morning. Happy 4th of July weekend, everybody. I'm Paul Lisnick, and welcome to WGN-TV Political Report. Taman is off this week. Coming up, a failure to act. As calls for police reform grow louder, politics gets in the way of progress on Capitol Hill. Plus,
this is an opportunity to grow the economy and to protect the environment. But more importantly, it is an opportunity to tell your children that when the times called on you to act, you rose to that challenge.
Another crisis continues to threaten the globe. We're talking about the push to slow climate change later this half hour. And misinformation in the digital age, the role social media platforms are playing in this pandemic. There were shocking reports this week released by the New York Times that Vladimir Putin and Russia had offered bounties of $100,000 for the death of each American and other coalition partners. The Trump administration says the president was not briefed or informed about it, but reports say it was at least in his daily briefing book back on February 27th. This as the pandemic continues to get worse throughout the country, hitting record-setting case numbers. On top of this, a positive monthly jobs report showing the addition of just under 4 million jobs and an unemployment rate just over 11%. Let's sort out this incredibly busy week. Congressman Sean Casten is a Democrat representing Illinois' 6th district, covering Chicago's western suburbs from Barrington to Wheaton. He's joining us this morning from Washington. And Congressman, good to see you.
Hey, how are you, Paul?
I'm good. So let's start with that breaking news, the Russia bounty story of this week. The New York Times reporting the president was briefed about it, him saying he wasn't, his people saying we didn't tell him, but it was in his briefing book. What's your take on this and its implications for the U.S. right now?
I mean, words fail me. Gobsmacked comes to mind. Look, we've reached a point where when the president says something, we're almost better off assuming he's not telling the truth than that he is. There have been enough leaks to be totally credible. My colleagues, I'm not on any committee that would have access to this intelligence, obviously. But there was a significant disappointment when my colleagues came back and said that in the briefing, Gina Haspel wasn't there. There was no one from the CIA. And the conversation seems to be about whether or not the president was briefed, not whether or not the intelligence is true. So basically, we have pretty good evidence that the Russians are killing our troops, and the president decided instead to have rallies and go golfing. Words fail to describe this moment.
Congressman, and in the middle of all this, of course, the growing pandemic, we're seeing the numbers rise. The president downplays it, but then we get this great economic report. Curious to your response about why the economy stays so strong, or is it maybe just lagging behind where the pandemic numbers are?
Well, keep in mind, we're at 12% unemployment. We've had 15 straight weeks of over 1 million people filing unemployment insurance claims. There's a lag in the data. It's obviously terrific that we've got jobs being added. This was the data that came out was before we started to see some of the surge in cases in June, and that's okay, right? It's it's the nature of data. But when the economy is changing as quick as it is, I think we need to be a little bit hesitant to draw immediate conclusions from what's going out. But we know that the money that we put into the economy from the CARES Act is largely going to run out in about 6 weeks. So that's $3 trillion circulating through the economy, which is about done. And we've got to get the Senate to take up the HEROES Act, because we're about to find out what it feels like to be in an economy with 11, 12% unemployment. So far, we've been somewhat insulated from that.
Yeah, and of course, part of the reason we get the spending through into July is because there was some PPP money that was never spent. So that gets extended. But as you've said, the Senate and Republicans are sort of not wanting to have any new plans after that. It sounds like what you're saying is that it's a significant risk for the economy if the government doesn't continue to provide financial support to people.
Yeah, well, keep in mind that the PPP, which we did extend, so we had $120 billion left in there, so that's great. But the unemployment insurance is going to run out, and we have got to get money to the states. When I talk to governors, when I talk to Governor Pritzker, we gave money in the CARES Act to make sure that state governments had funds to cover the additional costs of COVID. We have not given money to state governments to cover the revenue loss that they've had from falling sales tax revenues, all the things that our economy depends on. And the states are going to be in a horrible position soon of having to decide in their budgets, what do they cut? And those programs that make up most of state budgets help the neediest. It's Medicaid programs, it's early childhood education, it's nutrition. And oh, by the way, the states also employ about 20 million people. So we know what we have to do. I sort of liken it to saying, we've been driving down the wrong way on the highway. We know there's a truck coming. We're sitting there on the, on the other side of the seat saying, swerve, swerve. And the Senate's saying, now let's see how this lane bears out for us for a while. We got to change lanes. We got to pass the HEROES Act.
Last week, the Trump administration filed a brief encouraging the court to do away with Obamacare, Affordable Health Care Act. The Supreme Court will be hearing that next term. In fairness to them, part of it is just the briefing schedule when things happen. But nevertheless, do you have concerns if the court were to overturn Obamacare in this pandemic and what that means for us in terms of health care?
It would be an immoral decision. What the Trump administration is doing is immoral. We have, if that decision goes through, 23 million Americans are going to lose their health care. 5.4 million Illinoisans with pre-existing conditions will no longer have coverage. About 730,000 Illinoisans will lose their health care. The ACA was not a perfect bill, but it did significantly expand coverage. And if they break that, the expansions are being undone. We passed in the House this week a bill to do what we should be doing, and what the president should be on board with this, to actually expand the protections of the ACA, to provide additional carrots to states to extend Medicaid, to allow Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices, to make sure that no one pays more than 8.5% if they're on an ACA Silver, 8.5% of their income if they're on an ACA Silver plan. That's what we should be doing in a response to a pandemic, especially when so many folks are losing jobs who depend on employer-provided health care. The ACA is supposed to be that safety net. And if the Supreme Court rules in the Trump administration's favor, a lot of people are going to get sick, not have health care coverage, and a lot of people are going to die. I would have thought we would have learned our lesson at this point, that it's not a good idea to do things that cause Americans to die.
And obviously, Congress has also been taking up a lot of time trying to address police reform issues. The House addressing a bill that has a lot of teeth in it. The Senate gets blocked by the Democrats because they say their efforts aren't strong enough. I guess my question there is to say, since everybody wants to see some kind of police reform in some way or another, how do you do it when obviously the sides aren't talking to each other and the Senate can't deal with the House?
Well, look, I'm sort of optimistic about this. Look at how I think the politics of this are moving faster than a lot of folks in the Senate are comprehending. 25 million Americans marched for Black Lives Matter. 70% of Americans support the Black Lives Matter movement. Back when the Freedom Rides were going on in the 60s, 60% of Americans opposed them. And there is something beautiful and inspiring about seeing so many people who, let's be honest, look like me, rising up and demanding civil rights for everybody and demanding that we live up to our founding documents. And so I've been inspired by what I've seen. I think what we did on the House floor is not the end of that process, but it's a really important first step. And we'll see what the Senate does, but I'm cautiously optimistic that they will pass something, and then we'll figure out in Congress how to get it done. But, I just think we got to keep, as the song says, we got to keep our eyes on the prize. This is what we have to do. This is what we did. We're not going to solve systemic racism. And let's try to get the Senate up to, as close as we can to that point. And like I said, I'm hopeful.
All right, forever optimistic. Congressman, don't go anywhere. Hang with me because we're going to take a short break. But after this, amidst a global pandemic and a growing political divide, a group of Democrats tries to place focus on climate change. We'll finish our conversation with Congressman Sean Casten up next.